Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow. A show for all who are on the journey to discover the truths about their identity, history, culture, politics, spirituality, and family relationships. This is a show for the Black Freedom Movement and the Black Power generation and the hip-hop generation, including Black Lives Matter and associate activists, all of whom are seeking change. Dr. Oba Tashaka and his guests are dropping knowledge and insight from his successful organizing, research, writings, and innovative thoughts, the best of which have piped into God's mind to lift you up higher and higher. To the bosses, OGs, rappers, influencers, and those looking to evolve from the constraints of misinformation and miseducation to build a foundation for personal growth, love, and mental freedom. Check out the wisdom of the OR. Yeah, that's the original revolutionary, Oba T, who inspired 1 million black men with his rousing speech at the Million Man March, and who continues to fight, write, and speak the truth. Dr. Oba Tashaka is one of the deepest deep thinkers in the world today. A quote by Dr. Asa Hilliard. Dr. Oba Tashaka, then Bill Bradley, was the best leader organizer in the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE. An endorsement from Dr. George Wiley, Associate Director of National CORE and the best organizer blacks produced in the 1970s as the organizer of the National Welfare Rights Organization. The Dr. Oba Tashaka Show. Free your mind, and the rest will follow.
Greetings, viewers. How's everybody doing here today? To the family that watches this show, as usual, I want to encourage people who are new to the show to hit the red button, and that will bring you in as a subscriber, and hit the like button, and that tricks the algorithms, because you know these boys have algorithms designed to program you. So let's program the algorithms. And this show has been financed out of my pocket. I don't accept any corporate support, and so anybody that can do any donations, do it. Usually I do a background on the show and everything else, but when I have a distinguished guest like we have here, and I want to say to Brother Ugawa, Wolf Manlu, Sister Robin, and let's see who else we have here. Peggy Parks Miller, and others that will be coming on. We're honored today to have a long distance runner in the Black Freedom, Black Power, pan-Africanist movement. In a conversation today with the great Willie Mukasa Ricks. Welcome, Brother Willie. How you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you, Dr. Shaka.
It's an honor to have you. You've been running this race a long time, and with your lovely wife, because I've seen pictures of you in Africa. I've seen you all over the place. And one of the consistent things you see with you, whenever you see you, is a Black Power fist. And then I see also the speeches that you give around the country, reminding our people and our youth that the power that we have as a people lies within. You're a brother that I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and I know African people and anyone that loves freedom all over the world likes you. Now, anyone that loves oppression don't like you. And that might be why you had a little problem in your hookup. Hey, you know what I mean? They don't want your message.
The enemy's always at work.
Yeah. and we could always fight them and beat them. And I see on the back there, Snick, right on, brother. So this is a great honor. This will be a conversation largely, Brother Mukasa Ricks will do most of the talking, but this is an interrogation with history. You understand? Because a lot of times people can come up and talk about the books on history and stuff, but then we got people who live the history. And this is a relay race we're in, this Black liberation movement. It's not a 50-yard dash. And he gets passed from generation to generation. And this brother's been a long distance runner, a freedom fighter. So we're very honored to have you, brother. And today, usually I'm going through all this crap that's going on in the country right now. I'm not going to deal with that today. I just simply want to say that today, Black people in this country, African people, are going through the second post-Reconstruction. And the first technically started in 1876 with the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, but it actually occurred a lot earlier because Black rights were being eroded before they put in Benjamin, Hayes. Hayes is president of the United States. And they then began to go against whatever gains we had made during the Reconstruction period, where Blacks for a period of time got the right to vote, mainly to protect white interests, but Blacks pursued their own interests. And so now we're in this second post-Reconstruction period that I say starts around 68, when Tricky Dick gets into office and says, they didn't vote for me and I owe them nothing. And the Supreme Court and everything else began to carry out attacks on the gains that Blacks had made in the 60s, which continues down to this point where the Supreme Court has eviscerated the enforcement provisions of the Voting Rights Act, and where DEI is being used by Trump as an excuse for trying to reverse the gains that we made in the 60s and since then, because this was one of the defeats that they suffered subsequent to our victory of 170,000 Black Union soldiers that actually whipped the South during the Civil War, because we were the balance of power. And subsequent to the gains that were made largely by the Southern Black Freedom Movement that Brother Mukasa Ricks was an organizer and leader in, where restored was the right to vote, and also an attempt to end Jim Crow. And so those in power, particularly white racists, corporate elements, and others, they wanted to reverse this. And so we're seeing now that this is occurring. And so with Trump, with his DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion excuse for trying to remove Blacks from the civil service and from jobs and from history. And when in fact, DEI has largely benefited white women, whatever gains we got, we gained it through our own muscle and our own power. And under the disguise, this attack that's being carried out now is under the disguise also of woke. Woke. In other words, it's a crime to be awake. You understand? And we're getting to see just how many liberals are no different from the conservatives. You know what I mean? They're also saying the problem is woke. So in this conversation with Willie Mukasa Ricks, while the focus will be on Black power, we're going to lay the foundation for that. And clearly the wokeness that the system don't like was expressed in Black power, in Black consciousness, in pan-Africanism, and with Black Lives Matter, that took up the same kind of organizational framework of group-centered leadership that the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee took on. So you got any comments on that before I get into asking you some questions, Willie?
No, you made it so clear that there's no need for questions. Your statement was very clear.
Well, see, these are two revolutionaries here, him and me. So revolutionary is going to have some ideas on different things. And this is why it particularly warms my heart to have a chance to ask you some questions, because you're not just somebody who went through the struggle, you grew and you evolved into a revolutionary. There's a lot of people running around calling themselves revolutionary in the sense that toothpaste is revolutionary because it's new. You know what I mean? But in your case, your friend Stokely Carmichael, later Kwame Ture, and others, that has real deep meaning. So this is an interrogation with history, but with a revolutionary. Am I right, brother? You revolutionary?
I'm trying to be.
Yeah, that's all any of us could do. You know what I mean? That are. So what particularly, tell us something about your background. And I think it's always appropriate when you're interviewing Africans to talk about our family history. Ella Baker used to say that you know people by sitting at the table and eating with them. And then, you know, she would get into people's, she would always ask, who are your people? Ella Baker. And I know I never met Ella Baker, but she's one of my heroes.
Well, I knew her very well.
I know you did. And we're going to get into some of what you knew as much as possible. So first of all, in talking about your own family history, tell us about your mother, your father, the family you came out of.
My family was bought and sold in Jamestown, Virginia, to a group, to a white family, white people named Ricks, and they carried us to Alabama. And in Alabama, they beat my family until they said Jesus. They beat Jesus into them, and they baptized them into the Church of Christ. And the slave master who beat us and killed us and put us on the slave ship killed millions of us in Africa. And when they got us to Jamestown, Virginia, and got us to Alabama, they beat us and beat us and beat us until we said Jesus, and made us join and baptize my family into the Church of Christ. And my family picked cotton and that kind of thing in Alabama, North Alabama. And I was one of the people that picked cotton as I was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but my family was in Alabama, and I would go back there for summers, and I would pick cotton 12, 15 hours a day, chop cotton, which was even harder, but 12 to 15 hours a day, and made $3 a day. And my mama did the same work in the cotton field for the same hours and made $0.25 a day. And so you know what her mama made. And that when they worked in those cotton fields, we had to say yes, supposed to say yes, sir, to the white people and whatever. Lived in pure shacks, no running water, no heat, no lights, and had to walk a distance. And most of the people in the area had to walk a distance to a well and carry buckets of water on their head back to house to bathe and to brush and to drink and what have you. And that in Alabama, I saw slavery. And what I saw, I didn't like. And then from being in Alabama, I come to find that my great-granddaddy, lived in Florida, somewhere around here near Georgia, and they had killed some white people, white person people, and the mobs came to get them, and they ran and jumped into the river, and they had to swim. And two twins swim to North Alabama. I got to North Alabama and went to a native reservation and changed their names from Nellum to Nellum, took a L out. And when they went into that reservation, they married and became a family. So my family had always said that we were part of our family was married to the native people of this land, or people that they called Indians or what have you. And that they lived that. And then my father and those did the same, was in the same conditions, the Rickses, and that some of the Rickses were conscious. And I had a great uncle that worked on the railroad named Percy Ricks, and he was a Pullman porter. And he was very conscious, and he followed our country flat talking and words that we use, what they call bad English. He listened to those words and traced those words back to Niger, West Africa. And he went back to West Africa, and they inducted him into the tribe inside of West Africa. But he always preached something about consciousness. And so here, the secret that my mama kept from me is that her granddaddy was on the run from white people, and their family was not the name family that they had given all of them, but they had changed their names to get away from white people. And it was a secret that was kept inside of my family. And my mama's name was Casey, and that everybody called her Casey, no mama and all that, Casey. And that she was a person that kept all the children in the neighborhood, 10, 20 children stayed there all time, night, day, and what have you. And that when the civil rights movement came, when things started happening, the sit-in movement started happening. At the same time, Lumumba in the Congo was happening. Fidel Castro in Cuba was saying no to imperialism and picked up an arm and began to fight. Lumumba in the Congo said no to colonialism and fought against it. And educated the people there that there had been colonialism there. Leopold, who had killed 40, 50 million people, we don't know the number, but a very large number. And when the people didn't work hard enough, they cut their hands. First, they cut their ears off, and then they started cutting their hands and feet off, and then they cut the hands of the whole family off. But Lumumba and Castro was rising during the same time, but at the same time, we began to rise here in the United States. And when the three students at A&T went and sit down at that movement, the wind of freedom across the world, especially across the United States, began to blow. And they put those three students in jail. And when they put those three students in jail, that wind blew into my house, and I found myself and my family, my sister, going out to demonstrate and protest in that movement. And when we protested in that movement, the sit-in movement, not going in the back door, not saying yes, so the white people not getting on the back of the bus and disobeying colonialism, I got in that movement. And when I got in that movement, my mama encouraged me and kept it going. And when they kept me going, they burnt crosses in my yard. They threatened the life and made physical violence toward my house, my family, my mother, and what have you. But I stayed in that movement, and my mama encouraged it. And all the people that was in the civil rights movement in that area came to my house, and she would cook for them and whatever. And even at some point when people got on the run from the FBI or police department or whatever, I would let them come there. And my room, the bed I slept in, she kept it for me, and I'd come there and I would put different people in that bed and to get them fed until they could get to a more safer place from the police. But many times we had to do that. So my mama was in support of that, and my daddy's folks were conscious, and that they knew that I was in that movement, and that when I was picking cotton, I became conscious that something wasn't right. And I think all of that sort of led me to sitting in. So I joined the sit-in movement, and the rest is history.
So this is real interesting. So your resistance tradition, pride in Africa, has a family lineage. It goes way back.
Yes.
All the way back. You said one of your ancestors went back to Niger in Africa. Who was that ancestor? What was his name?
Percy Ricks.
Percy Ricks.
Percy Ricks.
About what year was that?
Oh, he went back in the 60s.
Okay.
Late 60s.
Wow. Then you've had in your family tree, one of your family members killed a white boy, and you
white people killed some white people or whatever. I don't know exactly what their involvement is, but they had to swim and change their name on the Indian reservation, marry some little native women, and that was a secret that was kept within that family.
Yeah, and that's also telling you something else about, in our resistance tradition, the relationship of us to Native Americans, because that was the one place you could seek refuge. And in some cases, we joined in battles with them.
Of course.
There was some negative stuff too, but I mean, the stuff that happened with the Seminoles in Florida, those were Africans and Native Americans fighting together. So you got encapsulated in your history a picture of a strong part of African American history, period. So it's in your DNA.
That's right. As a matter of fact, what we're doing is nothing new. It's passed down to us from the ones that came before us.
Well put.
And my mom put her life on the line, my family's life on the line, and there were attempts to murder different people, people in my family, and there were major attacks from the FBI and the city police there. And when I was in Chattanooga and lived in Chattanooga, my name was Papa Ricks.
Okay.
I was known as Papa Ricks. And when I went out and went through the pool halls and did the things that I was doing and hanging out on the streets, I learned a lot. But as Papa Ricks, I had went to school, and the school was so neo-colonialist and class-stricken that I was beat up, and they would beat you with straps and with pieces of wood and beat you. And that I went through that, and at some point I in school I was terrorized, and I would ask every day they allow you to go to the cafeteria and help wash dishes in hot water and get out the classroom, and I would do that, and the teachers, they flunked me twice, fifth and sixth grade, flunked me twice, and then they gave me a test. The state test came, and I made the highest mark in mathematics in the state. And the white folks came and got me out of class and want to know, how did you do this? And question I couldn't answer, but they had already did the scars on me. And matter of fact, and one of the reasons they flunked me is that I had bad eyes and couldn't see. And I couldn't see the board that they would write on. And that when I write, I get up and go to the board and write a little bit, come back to the board and look very close and write a little bit, go back to my seat. And when I did all this, they flunked me still twice. And when they flunked me twice, I didn't learn. I couldn't want to learn what they were teaching me. I didn't learn about Lincoln and Washington and Jefferson, all that colonial stuff. And then I would go to the cafeteria and volunteer. And there was a lady down there named Miss Moses, and that she would treat me so well. And I would wash them dishes in that hot scalding water, and that for all the children that was eating. And then she would give me a big piece of cake, chocolate cake.
Oh my!
So I love going down there, and that's why I got my schooling. And then they passed me to the 7th grade, and when they passed me to the 7th grade, I would skip school and skip school and skip school, and before you know it, I got out of there and went to the streets. And then I went to the streets with some young brothers that lived on the river, and we found a way to make money. That was a train. They lived on the river, right 10 feet from the river, and then right 10 feet from between their house and the river was railroad tracks. And the railroad tracks used to come by their house every day and switch their tracks. But on the railroad tracks, on the railroad trains, they would have iron. And these brothers, they were, people used to laugh at them because they live on the river, and they used to call them river rats. And I met them one day, and I said, hey, I called them by the name. Hey, Bobby, hey, Tommy. And they begged me to come on with them and took me down to their house and what have you. And I started hanging out with them. They were so proud that I was being friendly to them and not calling them rats and all that stuff, that they cut me in on something they were doing. When the train would stop in front of their house, they would get up on the train and throw iron off the train. And we would throw 1,000 pounds of iron off the train, and then we have a truck to come take it to the junkyard and sell it, and we would make $200 a day a piece. So I began to have big money in my pocket. We bought motorbikes and started doing wild little things. And they would be drinking. I didn't have the taste for drinking, but they were drinking, whatever. And then we went to the streets, and sometimes we would steal hubcaps off folks' cars and stuff like that. And then later I went and the white folks took our area where we lived in that area, West Side in Chattanooga. They took that and moved us out. And when we moved out, I got involved in, I went and got a job waiting tables. And I wait tables for these white folks at a hotel called the Reed House. When I wait tables for them, I would go in there and wait on table and say yes sir to the white folks. Yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. They're doing that for tips and whatever, but didn't know how to get done. But anyway, yes sir, and waiting tables. And I remember one week we worked 90-something hours. And, had to be almost all day, every day, for a week. And when we got ready to get paid, they'd pay us on Saturday morning. And when we got ready to get paid, they gave us $63. And we said, well, we work more than this. And the man said, yeah, but what would they think what would the manager think or the owner think if I gave some niggas more money than this? And I told the manager, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And I had been a good, fair worker for the hotel, but I told him, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And from that day on, I went in the hotel and I would go in empty-handed, but when I come out, I would come out with a lot of different kinds of stuff, liquor and everything else. I began to put me in a little hotel in my community to sell on the side. And from that day on, and sort of, and what have you. But then I got tired of that. I didn't like that so much. But during that time, my sister, I have a twin sister. She was in, all of them had gotten to the 12th grade. And I decided I wanted to go back to school. So I started going to school every day and hanging out in the school and going, sitting in different classes and hanging out, walking the halls and getting very popular in the school. I would a well-dressed brother in there and what have you. And I was in the school every day, get on the school bus every morning, ride the bus there, and then ride the bus home like I was in school. And at that time, the movement had jumped off. And in Nashville, Tennessee, C.T. Vivian and those and James Lawson, John Lewis, Jane Bevel, and they were in Nashville at Tennessee State. And they had just joined the sit-in movement that had kicked off in Greensboro, North Carolina. And when that movement kicked off in Greensboro, South Carolina, they put these children in jail, and the masses of the people said no. And every school, college around the South began to demonstrate. And then the high school that my family was going to, and my friends were going to, was Howard High. And we went downtown and said, let's go downtown. And we went downtown and we sit at the big store, 10-cent store, we call it, called Cress's. And when we sit in Cress's, they beat us up. They mobbed us. Mobbed us in the store. And then the next day we went there and they did the same thing, but we had a few brick throwing. They threw rocks at us and we threw bricks back at them. And then on that next day, we went down there. We put the word out. Everybody, the whole town, black folks closed everything, got off jobs and got out of school. Everybody bought a Coca-Cola where it was a glass bottle where you can buzz them in the head with it. And we bought that kind of thing and went downtown, about 1,000 of us. And we went downtown through the city, breaking windows and fighting, and knocking white folks out when we got a chance. When they approached us, we knocked them out, and then we Uncle Tom's came down there, and on a big time preacher came down there. Go home, my people. White folks that got him put him up on a fire truck, I think. Go home, my people. We're ashamed of you. This ain't no way to act. And anyway, and as we went down through town, the brick thorns got their thing. So we had jumped off the first riot, the first rebellion that in the civil rights movement was taking place in Chattanooga. And then we threw bricks. They bought in their fire trucks and all that, and we threw bricks and balls at the fire trucks and whatever. And one brother named Winky, he threw brick at the fire truck, and the police officer was there, and they pointed at him. And when he pointed at him, he started running, and all of us started running behind him, and the police was running at him, between him and us. And they ran up the hill. When they ran up the hill, the police ran up the hill. About 100 bricks hit that police. Bow, 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 bow. And then white people came down there and tried to say something to us, and we whooped them in the streets. And so it got attention of the civil rights movement. And the next day, the NAACP representative was there. and all of them came in and called us in and tell us they want to teach us about nonviolence. I thought was the craziest thing I ever heard. And he told us that when you go in these places and wait, if you know, for the movement, you want you to go in and you sit down. And when you sit down, they're gonna spit in your face and blah, 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 and they're gonna hit you in the face and they're gonna slap you and all that. And he got people up and say, let me slap you. And he was showing demonstration, slapping people, teaching them how to be nonviolent. And I thought it was the craziest shit I ever heard in my life. And I said, whatever your name is, let me slap you. I said in front of everybody, let me slap you. And he said, sure, come on up and slap me. And one brother next to him, he trying to make a fool out you. Don't go. I said, I'm going. And I went up there and he stuck his face out, slapped me. I slapped that man so hard his head spin around. And from that day on, I led a nonviolent movement.
Now let's stop right here. So you're describing as the sit-in movement kicks off, and you're talking about Lawson and Bevels, who later, James Bevels, would be in SNCC for a while and then later would become a part of SCLC.
That's right.
So the movement is kicking off, and then you've got the student sit-in movement that ended up with 50,000 students sitting in across the South. And Ella Baker said that was an expression of extended family networks. In other words, the word spread through families across the South and people began to sit in. So in your case, you are sitting in and others in your community, Chattanooga, and you're not in any organization. They ain't told you all about no turn the other cheek. So y'all are operating on what's natural, which in Black culture would be self-defense. You know what I mean? Go out there, do your thing. And then if somebody's coming up against you, bust some heads. But you were responding to a movement that was beginning to address segregation.
But we was in the hood. We was in the hood. We were in Chattanooga. So we were street folks.
Yeah.
And in Nashville, you had James Lawson, and he was up there teaching nonviolence and all that kind of stuff. And I'd never heard of it. And in my town, C.T. Vivian and I was in Chattanooga, and that but we hadn't got really exposed to, C.T. and I hadn't started hanging out together. And that in Chattanooga, rebellion took place. And like you say, thousands and thousands of people started demonstrating. And when they were out there like that, but before then, there was Ella Baker, and going to all these places where they were lynching. She worked some with the NAACP. And then when Rosa Parks sit down in Alabama, she was down there with Rosa Parks. And when she was down there, part of the Montgomery Improvement Association and those people, and Dr. King and those, and that in during that time, Dr. King, the sit-in movement took place. A ride in the back of the bus took place and that kind of thing. They bombed Dr. King's house and that kind of thing, tried to kill him and what have you, but he was encouraged. Now, Dr. King was the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and he was somebody that they brought in to be the pastor. And he was a young pastor, and when he was a young pastor at that church, they brought him in, and he was young, so the white people knew in town, white people didn't have nothing on him and all that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, Rosa Parks, who had got affiliated with other people in the movement, and at that time, Rosa Parks sit down on the bus. And when Rosa Parks sit down on the bus, they put her in jail. And when they put Rosa Parks in jail, E.J. Nixon and Mr. Saynos called a meeting immediately. And when they called the meeting immediately, they called it in Dr. King's church without his permission. And Dr. King said, no problem, come. And then Dr. King came to the meeting, and they said, we got to do something. We got to carry this movement on. We got to build a movement. and we got to carry it on. We got to create leadership here. E.J. Nixon, he was also a Pullman Porter. And that he called that and said, okay, we're going to do this movement. And Dr. King was there, and Dr. King agreed with everything. And that, but he said, I'm so sorry. I had another meeting, another appointment for this hour, and I have to leave. And E.J. Nixon told him, no, you can't leave because we're making you our leader. And he was drafted that night and appointed to be the leader, and they put him up front, and they did it because he was new in town. White folk didn't have nothing on him, and that he could freely express himself. And they put him up front, and the people started clapping for him, and as he grew from that. And at the same time, the Montgomery movement people had a relationship with Highlander. And Highlander was a group of white people who were socialists and participated in the movement, who the Klan or the FBI and the police were blowing up the buildings and stuff like that. But that was a relationship. And so Martin King and them got together and formed their organization. And Martin called himself a third. Y.T. Walker was a third. And Ralph Abernathy was a third. And Ella Baker went to Martin and all of them and told Martin, you need a staff. You need a staff. 3 people is not an organization. You need a staff. And she came to Atlanta with Martin and helped him set up the SCLC office there. And she worked in that office with them and set up their office. And when she set up their office, she left now. Here come the civil rights movement, jumping all students, running wild everywhere. And at some point, she went to Martin, said, these students out here, they're running wild, they're doing everything. They need to be organized. And Martin thought it was a good idea, and he wanted these students to be the youth group for SCLC. So Ella Baker talked Martin out of $800, $850. And when she talked Martin out of $850, she went to Shaw University and made an agreement with the school to allow us to have a conference there. And when they had to call the conference in, she called everybody together and all the students together and paid many people ways to get there. Back then, you could ride for 50 cents or on the Greyhound bus, Trailaway bus, or whatever. But they found their way to Raleigh, North Carolina. And when they got there, she helped them form the organization. And we formed it called the Student, because most of the students going to be nonviolent, going to coordinate what we were going to do, and we were organization committee, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And when she got the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and all of us came together, and she talked to us, and she told us that strong organizations don't need strong leaders. And you can share your leadership, discuss what you're going to do, and then you make decisions from the collective, not from the individual. And that we didn't believe in that one great leadership. And that she told us that you don't want to be under Martin Luther King and them preachers, because they're nothing but a bunch of chauvinists. And you form your own organization, and we formed the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. And we became our own organization, and we began to send the people out across the South, and we got us an office in Atlanta that Miss Baker definitely helped us put together, and she stayed there with us, and she advised us on many, many things. And that they also brought in Jim Foreman to be the executive secretary, and Jim Foreman was like the father of SNCC.
Yeah, because he was a little older than the rest of you.
Yeah.
Played the, role as an administrator and wrote a great book, Making of Black Revolutionaries, like I see in the background there, Stokely Kwame Ture. What is it what's the title of his book there? Stokely
Black Revolution and Black Power.
Yeah, and I see that in the back there and behind you. So what you laid out is like the foundation of what launched the movement. And the Montgomery bus boycott, and then the student sit-ins, and then Ella Baker's role in that. Tell me more about Ella Baker as a person. What was she?
Well, she was just a nice lady, and she didn't tell us what to do. We did everything on our own. But anytime she'd come to the meeting and sit there, I remember one time we was having a Central Committee meeting, and that I came in there, I was telling her about, we're going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and we're going to do this. And then all she said, well, that's a mighty lot. You're going to do all that. That's a lot now. And kept back. So she never told us what to do. Now, Miss Baker, she told us that we have to, one thing that SNCC decided that we would do is that we would not go into towns and be leaders, but our job was to help develop leaders. And we would go into all these different towns, send people, 2 people or 1 people sometimes, and give them a quarter, 15 cents to make a dime to make a telephone call, and not much more than that. And when you go into a town, one thing Foreman told us, that you go into a town, 2 things you got to do as an organizer. The first 2 things you got to do, find a place to sleep and find somebody that's going to feed you. Those things will cause problems if you don't have it.
Yeah.
And that, major problems. And I remember when we went to Gaston, Alabama, myself and a brother named William Porter, we got there that day and we hadn't made contacts and looked for local leaders and be able to find people. And we did go to a church and say, look, we're here for a movement, and they weren't conscious. And they said, well, yeah, you can, we need somewhere to sleep. And the preacher said, yeah, you can sleep in our basement. But the only problem was the basement was dug out and it wasn't nothing but dirt under there, and wasn't no rooms or nothing like that. So we had to sleep in the bottom of the church, in the dirt under the church. And we did that until we were able to go and find local leadership. So one of the things that we had to do inside of SNCC is whenever you go to a town and not go there as the leader, but go and find the local leaders. And sometimes historically, these people were there and had been there for 20 years fighting in different ways. But we had to find those kind of people. And if they wasn't there, we had to create them. And we'd go in there and we would find a local organization. And when we were sent into SNCC, we sent Charles Sherrod to Albany, and Charles Sherrod went to Albany, and that he went and he found the local leadership in Albany and helped create local leadership. And we created the Albany movement. And in the Albany movement, he was an organizer, but the people that came forward was Reverend Samuel Wells, C.B. King, Slater King, Dr. Anderson, Mr. Carter, and many other people. And they were the Albany movement. And then on the grassroots level, you had Miss Gaines, the Gaines family. You had Miss Christian, the Christian family. You had Eddie Brown. You had Randy Bell, and just had a bunch of local people. And these people came together and formed the Albany movement. And when we formed the Albany movement, they decided to go and march on the city. It had a bus boycott, and we tried to integrate the buses. But the Albany movement say, white folks down there say, before we allow black people to get on the bus with white people, we'll go completely out of business. And this is what they did. And then we went down there and we started marching in Albany, and they put hundreds of people in jail. And they filled the jails up so badly. That was our job, was to fill the jails. And the jails were filled so greatly that they took the people that they couldn't put in jail and just put them out in a fairground. And when they put them out in a fairground, they had to sleep outdoors and whatever. And that they held them in jail. And it got so intense that Dr. King was coming up, and he was a great figure. and national attention, and they called Dr. King in, and Dr. King came in and played a role in the Albany movement. And when Dr. King came in, he came in as the leader. And when he came in as the leader, SNCC had already gathered respect and all that. And when the Dr. King come in, they would introduce Dr. King, and everybody stand, the leader of our time, the Moses of our time. And all of them would stand and clap for him, but the SNCC people would sit there and say, oh no. And we just sit there and we would look at them and look at them do that. But they had as much respect for us as they did him, because we had organized it and what have you. I said that to say that everybody had to go through a town throughout Mississippi. Bob Moses was sent to Mississippi, and one of the places he went was to Delta, Mississippi. And he started talking about registering to vote and those kinds of things. And they machine gunned the house. They mobbed the house. They machine gunned his car when they shot Jimmy's Travels in the back of the neck. They killed people. And during that time in that area, they killed Megha Evans. They killed Mr. Damon. They killed my wife's family member in Natchez, Mississippi. They one of the things they did there, they poured gas on my godmother in Natchez, Mississippi. A white man came to her house and threw gas on her and set her on fire, killed her. And so these are the violence that we looked up in Mississippi, and we saw nothing but apartheid, nothing but racism, nothing but colonialism. And all throughout the South, we began to create leadership. And then one of the tasks that our job was to go into the cotton fields. And we would go into the cotton fields and talk to the people and ease our discussion on them and find people that could listen to us or be a little militant or get their address. And we would go back to their house at night and talk to them about freedom. And that's one of the things we did in Ruleville, Mississippi, when we went to the plantation where Fannie Lou Hamer was working. And we went in there, we talked to Miss Hamer and her husband about freedom and talked to them about what they were going through, sharecropping, working on these people's farms and don't get paid for it, or say they're going to pay you next year at the end of the year. And when they get their money and make their money off the crop. And at the end of the year, they said, well, we didn't make no money off the crop. Matter of fact, we went in the hole, and that you owe us $200 or $500 or whatever, and $50, and you can't leave the farm off the white man's land owing him some money. And this is sharecropping. And so we went and talked about all that kind of stuff, what we were doing. But we went to the plantation, Miss Hamer, she spoke up, and the white man we took her down and registered to vote. The white man told her, you can't be on this farm and go out there and register to vote. And she said, well, I'll leave. And that she left off that farm and began to speak out. And when she tried to register to vote, they took her and a group of them took them and put them in jail. And when they put her in jail, they had the prisoners to beat her, pull her pants up and pull her drawers down and just beat her. And she said they beat her till she was numb all over in the back and that what have you. But SNCC's job was to create. She came out and they thought that was going to break her, but she came out of jail singing, go tell it on the mountain, over the hill, everywhere that freedom is coming, and became a great voice, and her voice got larger and larger. But not only Miss Hamer, we were able to create over 100 women or even more in Mississippi that had the same voice, had the same strength, told the same story, and led to the revolution inside of Mississippi, and led to revolution there to people to register to vote and those kinds of things. And that we help, and then that we organization again, and that first we were organized on local level from one county to the next county, and then we decided to pull all those organizations together, and we organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And she had some great spokesmen for that party, and Miss Hamer and and many other people was spokesmen for that party that eventually got during that time we were organizing that party. The United States government, they sent tanks down there and they prepared for war. And at the same time, they killed our leaders. They killed Mega. They killed SNCC workers for being there. We brought in, as whites, groups to come down and join in with us to expose what was going on in Mississippi. And when they did that, in Philadelphia, Mississippi, 3 civil rights workers for SNCC on SNCC staff went and registered people to vote, but they put them in jail. And when Sheriff Rainey put them in jail, he that night, him and a mob came in and took them out into the reservoir and shot them and killed them and beat them and then buried them in the reservoir. And we had to call in the whole world, National Guard, everybody. They were white people and they had contacts, and we forced the United States government to send in troops to go in there and look for these bodies, and they found the body. We'd have to go out and look for the bodies ourselves, and that so many of us were getting killed. We used to sing whenever we got together, got ready to leave the house. We were saying, this may be the last time. It may be the last time. I don't know. It means the last time we see each other, last time we come to the house, because we didn't know if we were coming back alive or not. And those are the things that we had to go through, but we had to see many people die, being beat, put in jail, or put in Parchment prison, and that kind of thing. We went down the Freedom Ride. They put us in prison. And I remember when they put us in prison one time, one brother named was Big Lester. He was Martin Luther King, big bodyguard. And Martin kept him and him to bully folks. Martin was nonviolent, but he had that big bully with him. And when they put that big bully with him, they did a demonstration in Mississippi and got put in jail, and they took them to Parchment prison, and the prison guards beat him, and then they put him out there to some prison in there, had them to beat him and made him rape him, and they beat him till they destroyed him. And that he would be with Dr. King, but after he came out of Parchment prison, he didn't have no real response. He just walked around depressed and whatever. And I think he ended up on drugs. But they destroyed him in the jail. They had the prisons to rape him. And then, so we created, our job in SNCC was to create local leadership. And that's what we did throughout the state of Mississippi. And at some point, we brought all of them together and formed the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. But our job was to create local leadership and not call ourselves leaders. Our job was to serve the people and not them serving us. Our job was to do stuff for the people and build and organize for them and not make profits off of them. Like we looked at situations like the old women down there, they pieced quilts, and that's how they stayed warm, because you didn't have all this heat y'all got today. So that's how they stayed warm, and that they had to piece quilt. My mama used to piece quilts, and it made up from all your old clothes and rags and all that, and you put that together and you make a quilt. And one of the things we did, we organized a quilting co-op, and we would take them quilts, get all them women to make quilts, and then we'd have people to take them up north and sell them, and whatever the profit was, went back to them, and SNCC or none of us won none of it. And that's so an organizer is a servant of the people, and they do for the people and not have the people to do for them. And this is what the SNCC field secretary's job was.
Yeah, I think that what you've run down, because normally in this show I got a bunch of questions. You put a lot of stuff out there, and I hope people got it, because what drove the movement in the 50s and the 60s across the country was the Southern movement, because it was blacks in the South who stood up first. And this movement, we didn't call it a civil rights movement. What they call the movement, Willie, overall, was it not civil rights?
Oh,
What did you call it?
It was a freedom movement.
Black freedom movement, because a cardinal principle in our culture is freedom. And our idea of freedom is very different from the white boys, which is do what you want to do. No, freedom for us comes out of being restricted through slavery, but it comes out of the principle that you got to do right. And there's got to be some discipline in what you do. You just don't get to do anything. So it was not no civil rights movement, because the average Black person, what would civil rights mean to them? What it meant to them was freedom. They wanted freedom from being treated like dogs and animals to being treated like human beings. They wanted freedom to do what they wanted to do rather than being told what to do. And so this movement, there would have been no movement in the North without that. And I'd say there'd be no Malcolm without King, and really no King without Malcolm, but especially no Malcolm without that movement, because it's that movement, because Black people in the South rose up against terrible conditions.
Slavery.
I mean, yeah, what Willie's describing here is your life was on the line every minute. So part of what you're describing also is the role of women in the movement, and the fact that the style of leadership that Ella Baker called for was a style that particularly women supported, but this style had roots in Africa. And the roots go back to the Twa, which I cover in my book, Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality, where there's no leader. All the males and females have equal leadership roles. And then it goes to classless age grade societies, where after you have the hunter-gatherer period, people are living in small communities like Ella Baker lived in, you know, where people shared their resources. Her grandfather owned land, you know what I mean? And a lot of Ella Baker's philosophy came out of the communal traditions that she lived under. So that idea that no single leader, but the people are the leaders, that has African roots to it, and it needs to be restored today. So when Willie was describing the situation where King was involved in the campaign in Albany after SNCC had come in and it surfaced leadership and everything else, and then King was brought in, King is arrested at a certain point, as other people were in the movement, and he's asking people because he don't want to come out. But they say, yeah, they've got an agreement. And so King comes out, and then the power structure says there's no agreement. And what had happened is the chief of police in Albany, who was a guy named Pritchard, had read King's book, Stride Towards Freedom. And he knew that the basic strategy was to just lock people up, as Willie described it, and put them in jail. And then he said later they had them out in the field and everything. But in public, not slap them upside the head and do the bull counter stuff that they did in Alabama. And so it killed the movement. So Willie's describing two streams of struggle that are going on at the same time. Group-centered leadership of SNCC, and then the charismatic leadership of King. And SNCC is doing the groundwork, and then in comes King. And then King gets snookered. And so that was his big failure, Albany. And that forces him to then plan the next movement, which is Birmingham. So SNCC was always out there on the ground dealing with building local leadership. Now, Willie, what do you think of Black Lives Matter that took that same philosophy of group-centered leadership? What did you think of that?
One question again, go back to one of the things you said, and then we go to Black Lives Matter. Is it right? The women played a major role in the movement from the beginning.
Right.
And then when Martin was in Montgomery, it was the women that was filling up the mass meeting, that was doing the march and doing the demonstration and what have you. And they played a major role. Right. And when the women played this major role, a lot of time the men would not be there. And they used to say in the mass meeting in Montgomery, the women would get up and say, and the preacher would say, if the men don't come out, if the men don't march with us, then the women would say, we ain't sleeping with them tonight. And they would say, don't sleep with them tonight if the men don't come out. Next day, there'll be 1,000 men out there. Where are y'all come from? And but that's one of the which made the movement. But the women played the movement. And another thing the women did, they gave us their children. They sent their children out, just like my mama sent me out. They send them children out there, and they come out there and demonstrate and protest and take the beatings and face the dogs. And they were the firebrand of the movement. And that's one of the reasons we could say they put the bombs in Birmingham and killed them 4 little girls in Birmingham. They put my children in jail in mass in Albany and what have you. And what have you. And then you had a movement in Lee County where you had most of them made up of children, but you had great leaders like Agnew James and Mama Dolly and many others. And they had a big youth movement out there. And they would, one of the things that they did once, they came to the house and they machine gunned the house where these people lived, and they had 12 children. Machine gunned the house, and bullets went all through the house and even landed in children's pillow and missed them. But they did machine gun the house. And the church, we 3 churches that we used to have meetings in on the Lee County Highway in Leesburg, Georgia, they burnt them down. They burnt the churches down. They burnt a church down in South, and they burnt the other church down. And so your life were always in danger, but the young kids played a major role. So one of the things that we had to do is find a place to meet in them church that would open their doors, which they were burning down and blowing up. They blew up the church in Birmingham and killed the kid, burned up church with lead in. Then we had to find local leadership, and that's why they went and machine gunned May's house, Agnew James' house, and machine gun them and killed leaders like Cheney, Swan, and Goodman, Medgar Evans, Mr. Damon, and many others. And that so right, the women had to play a major role, and they played a role. They fed us. They made sure we weren't hungry, and whenever sometimes they would protect us. And that they killed Wiley Jackson. That was my mama's family folks down there in Nashville, Mississippi. And but they killed many people and used terrorism on people. They used terrorism on my mother, on my family, and what happened. They on little children, ran them down, ran my sister down in a car, just ran them down. And because I made a speech one night, and the next day, that morning, they were waiting on when they came out from school, they just ran the car over them. And then the doctors refused to wait on them and those kinds of things. But yes, women and children played a major role, and the women had their leadership and they led it. And there couldn't have been nothing without that. Martin couldn't have made it without the women. And then the children would come out and they would be in the front of the line facing the dogs and running into the dogs and being beat up and all that kind of thing. And they were the firebrand of that movement. Yes, so you're right. The women, children, and what have you. And Ella Baker say, y'all children, all of you want your own autonomy. Don't listen to those Uncle Tom preachers.
Yeah, in fact, Birmingham wouldn't have happened but for the children, because the adults were afraid, because they called Birmingham Bombingham. They'd blow up your house.
Birmingham.
Yeah, Shuttlesworth's house was blown up and others. And so,
matter of fact, they blew up Birmingham so much they started calling it Birmingham, like you just said. Yeah. I remember one night we were all laying in the Gaston Motel. That was A.G. Gaston. He was owned a big hotel. And we laying up in that hotel. 2 things happened. One night we were laying up in there, and everybody laying up in there sleep, because couldn't sleep where the white folks sleep, go to white folks' hotels and all that kind of stuff, because they trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. And they were in this black hotel. And one night they woke up, everybody started screaming, wake up, and opened the doors and hear a bunch of white people, the police, firemen, all coming at to whoop everybody. And everybody had to fight, including Dr. King. all of them had to fight and drive these white people out of the hotel area. It was like a horseshoe when you come in. You come into it, and then you're on the inside, but all the hotel rooms up like that. And we had to come out that hotel fighting. Everybody had to fight, even though we were supposed to be nonviolent. And I guess we were nonviolent by not making them not be violent toward us. And we had to fight. And at another night, and I think this was right before Easter, we were sleeping in the hotel, and heard you went numb. You couldn't hear nothing, and you found yourself up in the air flying. They had put a bomb in the church in the Gaston Motel and blew us up. It kill you. It make you deaf, but you're trying to figure out what's happening. But they put a bomb in the church, and then right after that, they put a bomb in the hotel, and right after that, they put a bomb in the church and killed those 4 little girls and whatever. But it was much violence. Those just a few of the story, because that same day, the morning in Birmingham, they killed 2 other children. And don't think about the other violence that's being perpetrated in other parts of Alabama. And that's just, Birmingham is just what we focus on. But it was happening in Alabama. It was happening in Mississippi. It was happening in Georgia. It was happening in South Carolina and what have you, because you heard of the Orangeburg massacre, where students went down to the bowling alley where the white folks bowled at South Carolina State. And when they got down there, the police, they refused to let them bowl. And they got back to the campus. The police and white people came and they surrounded the school, state troopers, and just started shooting down in the school at the children. And they killed 4, I think, and wounded 40, 56 others, and mentally damaged all the students that was on the campus and their mamas that weren't even there when they heard. They didn't know whether their children were dead and whatever. And many of them are still going through mental things right now of that killing and murdering at South Carolina State. So we talking about a mass movement and just describing a few areas and a little bit of it, but the picture is much wider. And when we began to see Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, at some point, we began to see that the picture was much wider. And this is when the Caribbeans, and we began to learn that there are Black people in Africa, there are Black people in the Caribbean, West Indies, and whatever. But the movement got bigger and wider.
And the movement got bigger and wider. And the consciousness began to change, because as you all were going in there, supporting group-centered leadership, bringing out leadership if there wasn't there, helping to develop it, and the movement was spreading across the South, you all were learning lessons. And then out of that, you were growing. Willie Mukasa Ricks, a lot of us in the North, San Francisco Freedom Movement and others, we're in a group that calls itself nonviolence. I'm an ex-Marine, so, nonviolence. My father was beating up Klansmen when he was 12 years old on a plantation in Orange, Texas. The owner of the plantation's son, you know what I mean? So a lot of us, we joined an organization that says that, but as you pointed out, the youth that came in like you and me, that was, okay, the organization had that, but there was no philosophy or way of life, because that wasn't the way of life of Black people, you know what I mean? It was a tactic. But what ends up happening is over time, the people teach us lessons. We learn lessons. What were some of the lessons that you learned and that you saw other people in SNCC learning that began to change their consciousness and how they saw things, change how they organized, change how they define themselves, change their tactics?
Well, SNCC saw nonviolence only as a tactic, and that we would take a lick if the press in the world is looking at us. We take a lick, but if it falls around the corner, we'll beat the hell out of them. Mm-hmm. If they come to our house and start shooting, we shoot back. Right. And because all Black folks in the South had a gun right by their door, and they knew they had to have it there because white folks could come at any time. And then one of the things that internationalized the movement also, at the same time the Montgomery movement was taking place, Ghana in Africa was gaining independence and fighting against the same situation that we were in under colonialism, slavery, white folks domination in Africa, in Ghana. And Kwame Nkrumah and those came and they won. When they fought their freedom, they wanted the country. They wanted to be the president. They wanted to be the leader. They wanted to have the army. They wanted to control all the economics of the country. And when Kwame Nkrumah came to power, and he called all the African black people from around the world, everywhere, places you never heard of, called them together, and hundreds of them came together in Ghana. And Martin Luther King was there, and Du Bois wanted to go, but the United States government wouldn't give him a passport. And they came to Ghana, and Kwame Nkrumah said to me, the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it's linked to the independence of all of Africa. And when he got his independence in Africa, he gave guns and training to all the different African countries throughout Africa and even in South and Central America. Padmore and all them down through there, and CLR James and all them down through Trinidad. But that influence spread it. And when Martin Luther King came back, the only example he had to tell us about freedom and liberation was Kwame Nkrumah. And he used to tell us that if Kwame Nkrumah can do it in Ghana, we can do it in Montgomery. We can do it here in Albany, Georgia. And we began to learn about Nkrumah and learn about Africa. And we began to learn about Africa. Different voices began to come up, and Malcolm X's voice came up. And when Malcolm X made his speech, he talked about Lumumba in the Congo. And when he talked about Lumumba in the Congo rising up, and then he talked about neo-colonialism, Uncle Tom's Shumbe, who joined in with the white people in the Congo and helped them kill Lumumba. Mobutu Sese Seko, he joined in with the white people, or the Belgians, who had cut off the arms and hands and killed millions and millions and millions of our people. They joined in with him and then killed him, and then cut his body up in little pieces, and then put his body in acid and whatever, and they killed him. And then came the leaders themselves and gave our diamonds, our gold, our oil, our silver, our copper, our pearl, our cobalt, gave it to the white people, gave it to American companies, to the British companies, to the French companies, and thousands of these companies in our land digging gold and got our people in slavery digging gold and oil and coltan and cutting rubber leaves and whatever, and making Europe and Britain and France and the United States rich, where we starved to death on our own continent. This is what they have done to us. And we began to learn about Uncle Tomism, and later we defined it as neo-colonialism. As we began to learn, I never heard none of these words back in the day when I went to the little rusty white folks store and say, I want a hamburger. I didn't know. I just say, hey, I ain't taking this white folks stuff. But as we, from that hamburger, I now want my land, Africa. I want my diamonds and gold. Matter of fact, I want to change the system from capitalism, where the rich get rich and the poor get poor, to socialism or communism, where we take everything that the rich folk got and give it back to the poor. Take over all the land and give the land back to the people, and build houses and food and medicine and clothes for everybody. We want to be in complete control. And this is what this movement gonna lead you to. Don't care where you start, you're gonna lead you to pan-Africanism. That means all of us getting together. Like these fingers here, pan-African mean all them fingers getting together and become one big weapon for freedom. And this is what we're learning, and this is what Brother Tashaka has laid out for the last 50, 60 years, and wrote, I guess, 1,000 books on it.
Yeah, now what you're describing there is the way in which the movement transformed. In the case of the San Francisco Freedom Movement in the North, but I think generally in the South, but in the North, some of us underwent an awakening and discovered that we had been brainwashed and that we had to recover our history and stuff. And one of the leading figures on that, and I see a plaque in the back of your wall there, the Honorable Marcus Garvey. Garvey became a big influence on us, particularly on me, but on others as well. And began to see how Africa fit into the picture. And then we started studying our history. And then one of the lessons I learned, because we led an economic movement, jobs. We defeated an entire economic power structure, built housing, did other things. But one of the things I realized is, yeah, we got jobs for people. But the way capitalism is structured, it's structured in such a way that the majority of the people are going to stay on the bottom. I don't care what you're able to do to get as concessions. In the majority of cases, it's going to be the rich getting rich and the poor getting poor, and Black people and brown and red people being the poorest among them. And we're seeing that now with the ripoff of Robin Hood in the reverse with Trump, where he's coming in claiming to represent poor whites, which is fake populism. And what he's doing is he's enriching himself. They're going to have a $4.5 trillion tax cut for the rich while they're cutting as much as they can out, including 30 million people off of Medicaid, poor people, who will be thrown in the streets. So this radicalized us. And in the case of the Congo, the case that you were given, Brother Mukasa, Eisenhower had a meeting. Lumumba came to meet with Eisenhower when he became prime minister of the Congo. And he actually didn't meet with him, but he met with other officials. And Eisenhower has a meeting with the CIA. And what he says is, presidents don't tell their intelligence agency, the CIA, to kill somebody. They hint at it. And so what he said is, that man Lumumba, he insulted the king of the Congo, the king of Belgium.
Leopold.
This was after, the current king at that time. He said he insulted him. He's a friend of mine. He was telling the head of the CIA to kill Lumumba. When the transition occurs between Kennedy and Eisenhower, Kennedy's coming into office, then Kwame Nkrumah is meeting with Kennedy, telling him to not put his hands on Lumumba. And Kennedy's response is, he's for the unity of the Congo, which is the opposite of what he was for. He was for the disunity of the Congo so they could continue to rip the country off. And so when Kennedy comes into office, I have a book where it's a picture of him getting on the phone, and he receives the message that Lumumba had been murdered, and he's acting surprised. Well, he allowed it to happen. And
he made it happen.
Yeah, through the CIA. The CIA was the main executioner of it, and the head of the CIA office in the Congo carried Lumumba's body around for about a week in the trunk of his car before they chopped it up and destroyed it, as you described, because they wanted no evidence of his presence that would unify the people of the Congo. But Lumumba was an example of the spirit of African resistance, because he said, they treated us like monkeys at the independence ceremony. He said, they're not going to treat us like this anymore. And so that's the spirit that a lot of us were taking up as well. And so, your comments about that are very important. What I want to do now is get into Black power. Black people don't go straight to a subject. And in this particular case, y'all needed to hear this other stuff, because a lot of you expected us to jump off into Black power right away. Well, you need to understand what led to this. And Willie Mukasa Ricks is just giving you the overview. And for people in the North who are running this bullshit about, because I remember in many of the areas of the South, in the North, they're talking about, I can't do that, meaning be a part of a movement like they had in the South. Well, what could you do but talk? You know what I mean? So what you're dealing with is this bloody stuff. I saw some people surprised that they used machine guns. They were using violence on us for 400 years. This ain't nothing new.
And
You know
still is right now.
Darn right. And if you're not prepared for it right now, it's going to get worse because they're setting it up that way. So now all these things happen. You have the Mississippi Freedom Summer. You have the challenge of SNCC, of the Democratic Party, trying through the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party to get seated as the true representatives in the Democratic Party, and that's rejected. And then you have the shooting of James Meredith in the back and the various organizations coming together. We had just elected Floyd McKissick. I led that because Farmer retired at the point that he saw that Black nationalism was rearing its head in court. And Farmer was a good person. Without him, there wouldn't have been any freedom rides. But he was a devout believer in nonviolence and integration, and that time had passed. And Farmer knew that time was going to happen. He said so. I read his book. He came to my class in 1983. And I took him out to lunch later, and we had talked. And Farmer had said he knew that the young people coming in core weren't going to be like him. You know what I mean? They weren't going to be turn the other cheek. They weren't going to be nonviolent. All this. So he saw the handwriting on the wall. So McKissick ended up being one of the leaders, along with Kwame Ture, then Stokely Carmichael, King. And for a while, you had the head of the NAACP and the Urban League until they couldn't get their way when they rallied to support James Meredith. So tell me, what was SNCC's view of what should be done when that Meredith March took place in 1966? What was SNCC's view?
Okay, I want to make another point on what you just said. Is one, when we carried the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party and the people from Mississippi, after they had bombed, killed many people, lynched our people, and did everything because we wanted to vote and what have you, and the Democratic Party, they were bombing us and killing us, and along with the Republic, of course, and they were killing us and murdering us and doing nothing about it. And we formed the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and we took many people, regular people, bare-feeted people, poor people from Mississippi that was being exploited and sharecropping and enslaved, took them to the Democratic Party, and they were great, big, conscious people, very educated in the movement sense, in the struggle sense. They were educated to the T, and they went to the Democratic Party and said to the Democratic Party, we want these seats. And what it said is that we ran for office. Before then, there was a man in Mississippi that ran for office. I can't think his name. It'll come to me in a minute. Back in during Reconstruction, and he lost the election, and he had took it to Congress and said, the people in Mississippi, I lost the election, but the people were being bombed, terrorism, burning down schools, burning down churches, assassinating, killing people, and I should have this seat. And he challenged the Congress, and he won the seat. And what have you, and we went there on the same premise of terrorism and murder and said, we want these seats, and we've been denied the right to vote. We've been killed and murdered for it. And when we went there and demanded those seats and stood there in the Democratic Convention, and they made a decision and had them to talk, and they sent all kind of folks to us to talk and tell us to compromise and just be able to sit next to the white people. We didn't come there to sit next to white people. We want the seats, Stennis, Eastern, all of them. We want these damn seats because they came in through terrorism. They're criminals, and they shouldn't be in these seats. They don't represent us. We want the seats, and we forced them to let us have the flow. We put Fannie Lou Hamm on the stage, and she started speaking so powerful that the United States, the president of the United States called CNN ABC, called them and said, "Get off the phone. I'll buy the time. Get off the station." And that they took the vote. They sent some Uncle Toms to us, even Martin King, said, y'all maybe need to compromise. Power, y'all maybe need to compromise. We said, no compromise. We want the seats. And we didn't come here to be talking about y'all going to vote and let us sit next to the white people. Hell no. We want the seats. And we made them take the vote. And when they voted not to give us the seat, we told them to go to hell. And we got up, Miss Heyman, all of them got up with their chests out with pride and dignity and walked out of the United States Congress and told them to go to hell. And then Malcolm X interpreted. Malcolm said, we ain't Democrats, we ain't Republican, and no, we Americans, and made it very clear. And that's when we left out of there, told them to go to hell and fuck some voting in Mississippi. And we just kept organizing. And then we went to Lowndes County. We organized the Lowndes County Freedom Organization, where they didn't allow black people to vote, where they were killing black people, where they killed Viola Liuzzo, where they killed Jonathan Daniels and others. And we went in there where they had 89% black people there saying, we want to vote. And we fought for the vote. And they, when we tried to get the vote, all the people on the plantation that tried to vote, they would take and put them off the plantation to force them to leave the county. We built tent cities and said, come stay in this tent city. And people having babies in the tent city, families living in the tent city, and the white people come down there and shoot in it. But in Lowndes County, we formed the Lowndes County Freedom Organization. Our symbol was a Black Panther. And when we formed the Black Panther Party, we were known as the Black Panther Party in Lowndes County. We've got guns, and when we would go to them cotton fields and tell people to register to vote, when the man went out there, the farmer, whoever went out there and started shooting at us for being out there talking to the to black people, we would shoot back. When they jumped behind our cars and started shooting at us, we would be in our cars leaning back, shooting back at them. When they come to our house and start shooting in our house at night, we had guns right there by the window. And when they start shooting, we start shooting. In some places, when we go and when they killed Sammy Young Jr. in Tuskegee and the Klan come shot in our house, the next night we got our guns. We knew where they lived, and we went down there and filled their house up with bullets. So now we come with a different attitude and a different people. We want our freedom. But now, as we began to do this, we began to see that voting ain't worth a damn and you ain't getting nothing. And matter of fact, I come to say to the people that instead of fighting for the courthouse and taking over these courthouses, we should have been taking the land, running them off the land. Then we could have built all the courthouses we want to build. And the courthouse ain't nothing. And then when we put all these black people in office, they get in office and they work for the same system we've been fighting against. And they be the one putting us in jail. They be the one most scared of us than the white folks are scared of us. And they try to help the white folks put us down. So now we have black power. And we at that point, Lowndes County was known for guns. And right after Lowndes County, SNCC had a chairman named John Lewis. John Lewis had been nonviolent to white people and all this kind of thing. And at that point, we came to the meeting in Nashville and said, look, we need new leadership. John is too weak, and he's too weak. We want to have another attitude, and we voted Stokely Carmichael in as chairman of SNCC. Stokely came in, and we put John out. They said it was a coup d'etat. We just ran him out because he's weak. And then when we ran John Lewis out, about a week later, about a month later, James Meredith got shot in Mississippi. We said we're going through Mississippi, and we've been telling people to register to vote and all that kind of thing. Terrorism had been used against us. And when we did all that, we come to the point that when we went through Mississippi, James Meredith, we called for black power. And when we called for black power, we went through Mississippi, black power, black power. And we talk about black power, we mean power for black people and whatever, but it defined it itself. And when it defined it itself, black folks in Detroit started burning down the cities, black power. And then black power, all the cities started burning down, dead bodies, black bodies laying all over, American armies running troops and tanks rolling down the streets, shooting black people. Black power began. We linked up black power with the people in Angola that was fighting against imperialism and colonialism. We linked up with Mandela, John Lewis, and forming us. Went to the United Nations, kicked the door down at the United Nations at the South African Embassy. We beat the ambassador's ass and secretary's ass, beat them all, and said, free the people in South Africa. Then we joined in with the freedom fighters of Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Guinea-Bissau, and started talking about African liberation. And when we helped them African countries get their independence, they all get black power, and some of them said Lutu Kontinua, some of them said Uhuru, but all of it meant black power, all of it meant pan-Africanism. And then after all that black power and whatever, we now come to say that all of us together, don't care whether you living in the Caribbean, don't care whether you living in Africa, it's going to take all of us together, because when you fight France, United States, all the white countries come help bomb you. And in order for us to fight in this struggle that we're fighting, all of us got to come together. And when you fight any of us, all of us, whether you're in the Caribbean, West Indies, Africa, South Pacific, wherever one of us are, we start fighting. We'll blow you up, we'll bomb you, we'll cut you, we'll stab you, we'll do anything for the liberation of Africa. And this is a fight that one person can't fight, one organization can't fight, one country can't fight. We as African people have got to fight, and we join in with all the revolutionaries of the world, Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, Cuba, China, North Korea, the Palestinians, and all the people that's fighting for liberation throughout, in Venezuela, Nicaragua. I was in part of the armies down there in Nicaragua and Venezuela too, and they helped running them out. And that this is what we got to do, and we got to be clear. We want socialism, an economic system that gives everybody everything they need, and money's not involved. Damn some money. We got diamonds and gold. We don't need their money. Their money ain't nothing but shit paper with their picture on it. So now we fighting for Africa. We fighting for pan-Africanism. We fighting for our liberation, and we condemn the Democratic Party. We don't want no parts of them. Republican Party don't want no parts of them. And damn some voting. Voting, you ain't getting nothing voting in their party. Get your own party, get your own army, and fight and take what's yours. China ain't begging them. China ain't voting with them. They got an army, they got nuclear bombs, and they take their own stuff. They take their stuff. And like you just said, we take Africa back. We won't have to beg nobody for nothing. We don't need them for no gold. We don't need them for no silver. We don't need them for no mangoes. We don't need them for no water. We don't need them for nothing. We don't got the only continent in the world that got everything that it takes for the people to live. And all of these people, the Britain, France, Germany, and all them NATO folks, they on our welfare. We feed them. They come to us for lights, for gas, for water, for cell phone, for electronics, make the electronics work. They come to us for cars and factories and industries. Everything in Africa make Europe. So our fight is for Africa. Damn some voting. Damn the president. They ain't none of our president. Castro is my president. The brother in Burkina Faso is my president. Che Guevara is my president. H. Rap Brown, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Toure, Idi Amin Dada. These are the presidents.
Yeah, so what Willie said there, I don't need to repeat. I mean, it's quite clear. And what he's saying is that the biggest thing for us is the freedom of Africa, the unity of Africa, and the unity of African people around the world as we free ourselves in each spot to see that Africa is unified. As one Asian in Japan said, he said, Asia today, Africa for eternity. Because if you look at the way the demographics are going and the real economic power in the world, it's laid in Africa. We have to overcome centuries of colonialism and slavery that has messed up the minds of some of our leaders, that has put us in the weaker position we should be in. So that's the end result. But here, what I want to do is go back to this Black Power thing, because you, Willie Ricks, played a very important role in this. And I want to start this off with a statement made by Kwame Toure, who was also a friend of mine. I wasn't as close to him as you were. but I know him well. He's a good brother. And this is a little statement that he made about Black Power. And then you, who are the real source of this, will get down to the going back to what happened. So let's listen to this.
Out of violence. I've seen too much of it. I've seen hate on the faces of too many sheriffs in the South. And I'm not going to let my oppressor dictate to me what method I must use.
SNCC planned to issue a dramatic call as the march approached Greenwood, Mississippi.
Willie Ricks was sent out as head as the advanced scouts, and sometimes he could have as many as 20 to 40, and as we grew bigger, even 20 or 40 people under his direction to spread out. And his task was to take them, spread them out to plantations, speak to the sharecroppers, tell them the march was coming through, but to throw out Black Power and to give little Black Power speeches to get the reaction. I think about 3 nights before Greenwood, because SNCC was decided where's the best place for us to launch it. About 3 nights before Greenwood, I remember about 2 o'clock in the morning, Ricks came back and he was giving a report, and Cleve Sellers was sitting next to me, I remember. And Ricks was saying, we ought to drop it now. The people are ready for it. He said, I said it the other day, and they dropped their hose, you know.
What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want?
Ricks had everybody primed. He said, just get to your speech. We're going against freedom now. We're going for Black Power. Don't hit too much on freedom now, but hit the need for power. So we built up on the need for power. And just when I got there, before I got it, Ricks was there saying, hit him now, hit him now. I kept saying, give me time, give me time. When we finally got it and we dropped it, Black Power, of course, they had been primed and they responded immediately. But I myself, to be honest, I didn't expect that enthusiastic response.
We want Black Power. We want Black Power. We want Black Power. What do you want? What do you want? Everybody, what do you want? We want Black Power. We want Black Power. That's what we gonna get.
Until finally everyone together was thundering, Black Power.
Now, let me add some stuff here, and then talking to the person who knows best all of this. Kwame Ture and I, we put security on him. We'd have meetings and stuff, and he'd be with us and stuff. So one time he told me the story of this, and this is what he said. He said, Willie Ricks had told me to say Black Power. But then he said, I'm quoting him because I got a memory go back 50 years. I'll tell you exactly what somebody said. He said, but Willie kind of crazy. He said, but I said Black Power. So tell us, what was the background of this? Because in 2 previous shows, we did 2 shows on Black Power. And one of them showed you coming in, because I'd done some research on this. And I talked to you a couple of days ago about it. You, before Stokely Carmichael, later Kwame Ture, had requested that you join him in this march, first of all. And he did because he knew you had certain skills. And so before you join the march, you check in, as a good organizer does, with your ex-executive director, James Foreman, and you run past him the Black Power slogan. You said, what do you think of me using this? And Foreman said, yes, which is showing you as a disciplined organizer who got some good ideas, but you're clearing things with people. So now tell us, what was really the background of this decision to use Black Power in the march, and where did that come from and everything else?
Well, Black Power came from SNCC, from Kwame Ture, and from myself and other SNCC people. Foreman, of course, that's the way I look at it. And that I had a role to play in Black Power because my role inside of SNCC, I came from an influence of ministers and from the influence of the pool hall and guys that come in and talk you out of your money and whatever. I came from those guys. So when I came inside of SNCC, I had to be the spokesman for John Lewis and get up and rouse people up. They couldn't go into the fields and stand up in the mass meeting and just fire the people up. And so I ended up being the speaker and the spokesman for SNCC people all throughout SNCC when they wanted something fired up. All of them called me. When Julian Bond ran for office, I had to get up and make a speech before he got up and said, "Thank you very much." And that's all I got to say. And then when Stokely, before he get on a stage or go in the field, he always put me up out there as a little country boy and fire the people up. I was asked to be the one to train Rap Brown and take him to the field and how to go and rouse people up and excuse me. and lead rebellions and get the people to rebel. All those kind of things have been my role inside of SNCC. And that so when Black Power came and that they asked me to go to Mississippi, Foreman and them agreed, and Stokely said, "All right, we're gonna hit them with Black Power." And that I went there and I went to the cotton fields and just fired them up with Black Power and just played my role and did what I had to do and set Mississippi on fire with Black Power. I had to go up against or go with Martin or go up against Martin on Black Power because they still wanted to talk about freedom now. And they saw it as being out of control because on that march, we gave Martin Luther King the education that changed his life and philosophy. And we took him out there in them fields and people saying Black Power and firing him up so much. And even when he get up and say, I don't think we need no Black Power, we'd be right there in his face, Black Power, Black Power. And we hit him so hard that inside the movement, but it was too strong for him and he couldn't stop it. And within a short period after that march, the people in Detroit went out into the streets, Black Power, and they were burning down Detroit. The tanks were rolling down the street. They picked up 20,000 men and put them all in jails and stuff, women too, and dead bodies laying all in the streets in Detroit. But the crowd was Black Power, and then it went to Newark, then it went to New York, then it went to Ohio, then it was all over the country. Black Power and dead bodies in the streets, bricks flying, fly bombs running, and Black Power taking its own course. And then Black Power went into South Africa. Steve Biko, he's away to Africa. And then Angola, Luta Continua. Then Kenya, the Mau Maus, Uhuru. And this Black Power spread. Mao Zedong called for wrote a book, something called Spectrum of Black Power. Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana talked about Black Power. Adam Clayton Powell talked about Black Power. They ran him out of Congress, and that's why he had to exile down into the islands. But it got stronger, and then Black Power took its own personality, and we began to, when Black Power led us to Africa, and we began to point to Africa, and I learned somewhere along in that time that Africa was the richest country in the world. Africa had diamonds, gold, oil, rubber, zinc, tea, copper, pearl, cobalt, manganese, all that kind of stuff. We built a great unit. We had our own gods in Africa long before slave ship Jesus. I learned that the white folk used to beat us and beat us and beat us and make us say Jesus, and then take us in there and baptize and give us a religion. How the slave master gonna give you a religion? And then I learned that in Africa, we had great kingdoms in Africa, Ghana, Mali, Songhay, Zimbabwe, and thousands of other great kingdoms. The East Tribe played major roles. We even had our own gods all over Africa and whatever. And that Black Power led us to all that. And then one thing, I was also in the first ride that took place on the college campus, and that was at Fisk University. We had a conference down there, and it was called Black Power Conference when they endorsed it right after it came out. And we called in everybody, Eldridge Cleveland, all of them came down, and they came down to the conference. But in the middle of the conference, Eldridge just got out of jail. And in the middle of the conference, the police shot a black man in the back of the head down there. And we turned the conference out and went out in the streets with the students, and they started throwing bricks and balls and fighting in the streets, and they were hollering, Black Power, Black Power, Black Power. And then we told the students, go to all these white schools that's in these schools, go up there and organize black student unions. And then we also told them, take over them buildings and organize Black Studies Department, our African Studies Department, and we did that and forced them to go in there and teach about Africa, and they learned a lot of significant things about Africa and whatever, and they educated a lot of people about Africa and about the movement. But we forced that on all. That's part of the Black Power movement, and that and then through the Black Power movement, when we started burning down the cities, we went against the war in Vietnam. We spoke up for Palestine. And when we went out there and started fighting and rebelling in the streets, burning down the cities, we were saying, hell no, we won't go to Vietnam. Why should a black man go to Vietnam and kill yellow people for white people? Hell no, we won't go. And we fought against the war, and we helped the Vietnamese whoop America. And we joined, and also when we went to Ho Chi Minh said, what do you want to do? We want to fight. He said, no, go to Africa. Africa is your fight. That's where he sent Stokely, all of us, and went to Africa. We joined in with Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, and got direction from them. And we got direction from them. At that point, the liberation movement was taking place there. We organized a group called SABU, Student Organization for Black Unity. They put out a newspaper that talked about all the liberation movements. We sent people down there to the liberation movements to help fight. We raised money for them. We raised guns for them and everything else. But all that movement began to merge together, and we began to see that it was one movement. So I was in all these movements, and I was just a servant for SNCC or for the APRP, and I just took my assignments and went out and tried to do my assignments the best and teach people about Africa and what have you. I was a great African teacher. We talking about African historian. I hear one of them great professors and them students sit down and tell me about all that African stuff. Before you know it, I'm standing in front of 100 people telling everybody what I just heard and whatever. And so I have always just been a student of those people that came before me, and the people that I taught, they taught me. And as they taught me, I began to learn more about Africa and pan-Africanism and whatever. And so I've just been a servant of great brothers like you, because you wrote the books and put the information out there, did the research, and I just laid it out there like that. And all that was part of the Black Power movement.
Yeah, and you've described here what a real leader is. A leader is a follower of the people's just will. As you said, you were a servant, and servants in the African leadership system are also shepherds. And I've been an organizer now for 65 years and a scholar for 63. I wasn't a scholar for 65 because I was asleep for 2 of those years. I couldn't become a scholar until I woke up. So what you've described here, what you all did with Black Power is you put a blanket on things, because what had happened is the consciousness had shifted from Negro to Black to Africa. And what began to happen is Blacks began to form all kinds of Black organizations, Black psychologists, every kind of Black every kind of Black that you could think of. Blacks were doing that. So that was at least a framework for beginning to build power. So there's going to be another part with you. I'd like to have you on again where we contemporize this and deal with now. How do we apply this to now? But I want to wrap this up here with a statement made by then Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Touré, and it kind of summarized where SNCC and the movement was going at that time.
I want to talk to Black people across this country. There are 4 things we have to do. Number 1, we have to stop being ashamed of being Black. We've got to stop being ashamed of being Black. Number 2, we have to move into a position where we can define terms for what we want them to be, not what racist white society wants it to be. We have to move to define. We have to move to a position where we can feel strength and unity amongst each other from Watts to Harlem, where we won't ever be afraid. And the last thing we have to do is to build a power base so strong in this country that will bring them to their knees every time they mess with us. Now, we have to talk about the foreign policy in this country because black people are nothing but mercenaries. A mercenary is a hired killer. And in our ghettos and in our rural areas of the South, our only chance is to go into the army. And what this country is saying to us is the only way we can have a decent life is to become a hired killer. We've got to stop that. We've got to stop that. A black mercenary is a man who goes to deliver freedom for somebody else when he doesn't have it where he comes from. We're mercenaries. A black mercenary is a man who leaves his land and goes to another land and gets shot over there and is afraid to fight for it on his own land. We are mercenaries. A black mercenary is a man who can get killed on a foreign land and come home and can't get a decent burial in his hometown. We are mercenaries.
Yeah, so
that was in Jackson, Mississippi.
1966, it was a part of the Black Power march.
Yes. And also what he was saying is even now is that you see the mercenaries, see that mercenary that got on television right now, meeting in the Congress and with Bush and those, saying he's going to Burkina Faso and kill the president in Burkina Faso. And these are neo-colonial mercenaries that's killing and murdering for the United States. We make the world know we support Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is nothing but a worldwide pan-Africanist movement. It's a movement for Africa liberation, and we're fighting for that. We support Mr. Touré in that country, but that's part of all the Africa liberation movements in Africa. And that movement is part of Guinea-Bissau. It's part of Guinea breaking off from the French. They better break off. Sekou Touré broke off from them 65 years ago or 70 years ago. And that now it's a cry for Africa to unite, to stop them neo-colonial governments that the United States and Europe have set up. And they put black men up in there and old washed up men, and they do nothing but sit there and say yes sir to these white folks and to the imperialists and to France, Britain, Germany, United Nations, NATO, and all these white countries come in there, drop their chemicals, drop their companies in there, and dig diamonds and gold and oil and silver and copper and pearl and cobalt, take it out of our country and leave us without even a drop of water. Africa's our land. We take over that land. We can economically feed every African in the world. We can give all our people houses, lights, gas, water, food, medicine, education, and everything that we need. And it won't take no money. We don't want no money. Money ain't nothing but shit paper with their picture on it. We got diamonds and gold and oil and silver. Let us defend it. And it's Martin Luther King used to always say that so many of us are asleep. Wake up. You're a part of Africa, and you'll never be free until Africa gets free. And you can't trust them politicians and them punk-ass preachers. They ain't doing nothing but saying what their master tells them to say. Fight for Africa. Africa is the only solution. Africa. Pan-Africanism. All of us coming together and learning Africa. And each one of you got to go out, create these freedom schools again, create different little education institutions in every alley and corner, on every porch, under every tree, on every basketball court, and wherever you find out people, tell them about Africa. And one of the education organizations is the AAPRP, and the AAPRP, they got an educational thing on the internet, and if you Google AAPRP, they got speeches by Lumumba, by Nkrumah, by Sekou Touré, and all the different leaders from around the world speaking out for Africa, speaking out for Pan-Africanism, standing up like Fidel Castro and like Hugo Chavez and Uduru and whatever. And the United States is trying to make a war against Venezuela right now. They're warring against Venezuela, and they want to use Guyana to attack Venezuela. I had a young man talking to me on the internet yesterday. He said, Guyana got to defend itself. They're fighting against Venezuela. Venezuela want to take our land. And he's from his root. He's a black man, African. His roots is from Africa. And the rest of the people in Venezuela, they from India, and the real land belongs to the native people there in Venezuela. And Hugo Chavez, them, they are the natives. They are the so-called Indians. They are the Aztecs. They are the Mayas, who the land belongs to. And I want to warn you against us fighting against anybody in this world for the United States. Don't do that. Don't come on the native people's land, Indians' land, and now you got to fight for some land that don't belong to you nowhere. You belong to Africa, and them Indians in Venezuela, down there, they belong to India, and that's what it is. And the United States got troops on that land on a how you say, what's the land? Anyway, they got troops down there on the land, and they want trying to make a war against Venezuela. Venezuela is a socialist nation. Nicaragua is a socialist nation, and they're fighting to run the American imperialists off their land, and we must stand up and fight with them. And never, cause if you black on some land down there, you don't belong there. Your fight is for Africa. And yeah, we want to go back to pre-colonial times and put everything back in place that the white man, America and Europe has put out of place. And I'm talking about revolution and revolution.
Right on. Just say a few things and then we'll close out. Last Friday, there were demonstrations across the United States in support of Burkina Faso.
Across the whole world.
Right. My organization, Pan-African People's Organization, and Brother Ustadi Kadiri, who's a major organizer for that, took part in that. So I agree with what you said. And when it comes to Africa and the freedom of Africa, and you're talking about going back to the pre-colonial system, we have to, one of the things that for Africa to be free, the European nation state model, which is the one that's being used in Africa today, which is a model that is designed for very few leaders to rip the people off and to use the government to serve as a conduit for the West to rip Africa off, that has to be replaced by African models. And that's not easy because we went through colonialism and slavery. The Chinese went through colonialism on their borders, but they could keep enough of their culture together that Confucianism, along with the practical stuff that the Chinese are doing now, is putting them in the second position of power in the world, and they will soon be in the first position. America's in decline right now. So the very things we need to do to rebuild families and communities in the United States is the same thing that needs to be done in Africa to rebuild nations. And one of the things that, you're telling me you read my book, Return to the African Mother Principle. European nations, states come out of their social structure. Their social structure is it based families, and then it's economies and all the other things. Their social structure is patriarchy. Man rules. And when it comes to economics, a few rule and they take everything. And the idea of private property, that individuals can own property in Africa, the land, air, and water belong to no one. It was a gift that everyone shared. That's called communalism. And so what we need is to begin to reconceive of how we run societies in which the people have the final say-so. And if you look at traditional African culture, that's the way it works, and that's the way it's going to work here. Males and females, African males and females, have to have the say-so in rebuilding our families and communities, which have been heavily hit. This is true for the African world at large. So Pan-Africanism, or the idea of the unity of African people on the continent, the unity of an African continent, the unity of African people globally, and rebuilding our families and communities here to rebuild real Black power. And I want to have a follow-up discussion with you on that.
And also, communalism is the mother and father of socialism and communism. Modern day communalism is nothing but communism and socialism, and all that does says it take our land back. Everybody have ownership in the land, and the land's supposed to solve every social and economic and political problem that the people have. And that's what they're trying to do in China, Venezuela, Cuba, and many other nations in the world. And the United States is trying to make sure that people like Musk and Trump and all these dogs own and take your stuff and starve you to death. And we say, hell no, we must run the French off our land, run the United States out, number one, make them get their armies off our land, beat them off our land, and unite our people. And each one of us got to become soldiers. We got to go out here and get these real little soldiers like the Bloods and the Crips and these young humble brothers, and teach them revolution, teach them which way to go, and teach them how we can fight, because they are our real soldiers. Them little brothers they call gangs, that's what they scared of. The police scared of them. They told in South Africa they had a law saying anytime three black people get together, that was trouble, and they put them in jail, and it was against the law. And I heard a police say on television the other day that anytime you see three black boys together, they are a gang. When they say gang, that means they're dangerous, they're bad, they need to be in jail, they need to be killed, and that's what they're saying. But no, our children are not gangs, they're organizations, sophisticated organization, a survivor, and we need to go out here and politically educate the Blood, the Crips, and all these other so-called gangs and sophisticated organizations out there, give them our love and train them for the leadership. And we need to send half of them over to Burkina Faso and let them hang out with the president over there, because he's a real soldier. And all y'all, militia groups and all that, you need to start your way to Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, and prepare and learn what a revolution is, and learn how to fight. And also, we must stand together as one. We are Africans, and they want you in Africa. They need you in Africa, and Africa is the only way to solve our problem. But the United States, the Democrat, Republican, don't be fooled. It ain't Trump. It's the United States government. It's imperialism. And that's what we have to understand. All of them is a low-down devil. Abraham, Lincoln, Washington, Jefferson, and you can name all the way up to this punk called Trump and Biden and all that. And we must stand with the Palestinians. You killing the Palestinians, you committing genocide on them like you did the Indians, like you're doing us in Africa, in the Congo right now as we talk, and Apple phone and all these telephones coming down there, getting that coltan down there and cobalt out of Africa to make these cell phones. But in order to make them, they got to commit genocide on our people, and they're doing it, and we must prepare to fight. We must get organized. But again, go to AAPRP, and it's got a lot of education on there, hundreds of speeches of great leaders from around the world, Castro and many others, Mao Zedong and all the rest of them. Go and listen to these speeches, Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Lumumba, and go and listen to all these speeches, and you can begin to get educated, and you can be educated right there on your cell phone. There's a lot of information right when you're driving your car down the street. Put Malcolm X on, let him talk to you, and you'll be surprised. And then what they're doing through television, cell phones, and everything else, they're confusing our mind and putting garbage in it, very bad garbage, and making us crazy. And we must praise our women, we must praise our children, and we must guide this revolution. And we call it pan-Africanism. That's just all of us coming together as one, loving each other and getting ideals and philosophy and ideology, and began to move together in the same direction. And one of the most important things for us to think together and have the same philosophy of the world.
Right on.
So, Doctor, thank you so much, man. You have been educating out here, and I've been learning from you from a long time. Even before you were writing the books, I was learning and knowing of you. And what was that lady name out there with you had school?
Let's see. One was SNCC Caillou was one, and there's a sister in Ubuntu who's in Atlanta.
Ubuntu is down here with us right now.
Yeah, right.
Now this lady, what's her name? She's out there in the San Francisco, Oakland area years ago. I think she put together a school somewhere, old school.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I can't think of it. There's so many of them out there. And yesterday I was at a meeting and they made a little play of some girl, a lady, and she went to prison in Mississippi, and they were down there trying to take the land back from the white man, and they had shootouts and all that. And anyway, they were praying her. She got a little counseling, but the children made a play about her, and I was down there with her, and it was very good.
Right on. Well, brother, I really love you. I love your commitment, the work you've done, and the fact that you've remained incorruptible, which is the real definition not only of a good Black man or Black woman, but a real Black man or Black woman.
Thank
you. I want to praise you for your work and your fire, brother, and your take no shit attitude. And I want to heap the same praise on your wife, because I know she's got to be every bit as strong as you, and I see her up in Africa with you. And that's another thing. Willie Ricks is in Africa a whole lot and doing his stuff there.
Getting ready to go to Burkina Faso.
Right on. Yeah. In fact,
Niger and Mali.
Yeah, you're raising some money for that, aren't you?
Say it again.
I saw somewhere where you were trying to raise some money for that.
Yeah, I was trying to raise some money to get there, and that anybody want to help, they can go to the GoFundMe, and this $ and Mukasa Ricks. $ Mukasa Ricks. You can put my telephone in there, 678-777-4361. Need all the support you can get, because I'm trying to get to Guinea-Bissau, and if they, I don't know if they give me a rifle, but I hope they give me a uniform to make clear that I stand with them. I'm against France. I'm against the United States, against the Democrats, against the Republicans, against all this shit that can put us in slavery. And I want to stand there and be a soldier with them. I'm a soldier for Africa, and I come to serve you and make the world better for you. The only reason I'm going there, I'm going to prepare a place, a home for you. I'm going to prepare a place for you. You got to get out this swamp, get out this prison, get from under them bridges, get from living outdoors, sleeping on the streets like you're doing in San Francisco and all that other stuff. We got a home, and we got much gold and diamonds and oil and silver and copper and pearl and cobalt. And we stopped the French, stopped the British, stopped the United States, stopped NATO, stopped the EU and all them, stopped Israel, stopped Zionism. And we stopped them. We can feed every Black person in the world. We got so much, and left over, we can help feed the whole world. And right now, we feeding the whole world. The whole world is on your welfare. Exactly. You feeding them your diamonds, your gold, your mango, your peanuts. Is feeding these guys. Like that punk up there in the White House with Trump. Got $100 billion. Where you get it from? Africa.
Exactly.
Yeah, Africa. That's our stuff, and he hate us.
Right.
Come on, let's get this arm together.
Right.
That's right, brother Africa. Damn all these folks, man. It's time for us Africans to love each other and to fight together, learn our history, learn our culture. Let us have an identity.
Right on. Right on. Well, thank you, Brother Mukasa.
Oh, thank you for allowing me to come in here and talk to all these beautiful, lovely people. And remember, I'm nothing but your servant, trying to find the truth for you. Look for the truth. Wake up. Martin Luther King was so worried about our people. He said they are asleep. They're sleeping, and we need to wake up. Please, please wake up. Go and get a book. Listen to Malcolm X. Go and get tapes and listen and listen. Those of you that can read, start reading these brothers that have written books and laid it out for you, and start doing. Mr. Do is better. And that I'm not, and you are the ones that got all the knowledge. All these folks that came down in SNCC, some of them were doctors, some of them was engineers. They went to the best school. I had to teach them all, take them to the field and teach them how to talk to the cotton pickers. They came down here talking about, we all registered to vote. and the people in the country didn't even understand what they were saying. When I went down and started saying, we need to register to vote. Miss Hammond was saying, register to vote. They said, oh, yeah, we're reddish. Yeah, we don't speak the white man's language.
Yeah, because that's where the power is. It's in our people.
It's in the people. All power and all knowledge. Everything. All knowledge is in the people. It's in you.
Better believe it. That's what woke me up. That's what woke you up. That's what makes all of us up.
That's because serving the people woke you up, and serving the people will educate you.
Exactly.
The minute you just go to serve the people. And we need people that would do stuff for the people, not people that want to be in glory, not people want to be on top. We need people that's humble enough to serve the people. If they need cotton, matter of fact, many of us are going to have to start growing gardens, putting together all kinds of things because our people are suffering. And we need people that's willing to help them. You're the revolutionary, not those of you come out here to make money off the poor people. You're bums.
Right on. Well, thank you, Brother Willie.
Thank you, African.
Mukasa
Dada. And I want you to know that my name was given to me when Stokely Kwame Ture and myself was in Uganda. Idi Amin sent me over there to do some diplomatic work with Idi Amin. And when I was in Uganda, Idi Amin gave me my African name, Mukasa Dada. And that Idi Amin was a fine man. He took his country, took the guns when they put him in the army. He turned his gun on the white man, on the British, on America, on all of them, put them out the country, on Jews, on the Israel, put them out the country and gave Uganda back to the Africans. And they told every lie they could tell on him and tried to make him look bad, but he was a good man. Long live Idi Amin Dada. And that's why I have the name Mukasa Dada. And I gave the white man his name back, gave them old Ricks their name back. And matter of fact, the last time I was down there, I went down there and found the old man Ricks' grave that bought us, and I shot in his grave.
Okay, brother. So I'll be calling you because I want to do a follow-up on this.
I'm ready.
Many follow-ups.
No problem. Let's get to work.
Hey, thank you, brother.
Thank you, African. Black power, black power, black power. Long live Burkina Faso. Long live Niger, Mali. Deaf to the French, deaf to the British, deaf to America, deaf to imperialism. Viva socialism, viva communism, viva revolution, viva Cuba, and all the people that's affiliated with Cuba. And thank Russia, thank Putin for being a great supporter of the revolutions throughout the world. Thank you, Putin, and long live Putin. And Ukraine will be defeated. Ukraine ain't nothing but an attack on Russia by the United States. They're trying to stop Russia and keep Russia from using this weapon, putting them in Africa and other places in the world to defeat America. And that's why America and all them NATO countries is attacking Russia. But Russia's on the right side of history. Damn the imperialists, damn Europe. Long live Russia. Long live Putin. Long live communism, socialism. Long live the African Revolution. So again, thank you, my African brother.
Thank you. Right
on. Forward Africa. Africa unite.
Right on, brother.
Africa must unite. Africa must be free.
Hey.
Long live Burkina Faso. Long live the Congo. Long live Lumumba.
Right on. So we're ending now, but this has been pure pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, all the African women, all the African children, all the freedom fighters that can hear my voice. Thank you. We know who you are. We love you, and we're fighting for you. And one day we're going to give each one of you a bouquet of diamonds.
Right on. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, African.
Okay.